when you were a male escort and it was predominantly really ultra successful business women that were hiring you. I'm really intrigued by that because there's the stereotype that's associated with ultra successful males that they can just throw it around and obviously they want to get their dick wet. But naturally, females don't really have that associated with them as much, I think, to most.
Yeah.
Did you have any like weird experiences with these women, or are you playing a role? Are you playing a character? What very much. What was that like?
You're being the fantasy. Like you're being like obviously I'm dressed in a 2-3 piece suit. I'm top of the line. I'm taking them to a very nice restaurant. It's the boyfriend experience.
Oh, so it's still like a date. It's not just this is the room number. Just come and I'll be on all fours waiting.
For the most part, it's a boyfriend experience.
Right.
So you're especially for that wealthy kind of mid-30s, mid-30s, earning 6 figures, working a white-collar job, maybe it's just managerial or some kind of, but her day-to-day life is one of like responsibility and managing other people, you could say being in a very masculine mental frame of mind. I think
most men are probably intimidated by that as well, which is...
Well, there's a bit of that, but it's also like that woman is at a stage in her life where the kind of guys that are her peers are not dating her, right? Because her peers in that professional world are dating like the secretary. They're dating the intern, right? They're not dating her, who's in her early to mid 30s, and so that leaves her with this gap. Like she wants a guy like herself, who she feels like is on her level, who's articulate, who's well-read, who's well-traveled, who can communicate, who can wine and dine, who knows culture, is high, can engage in that kind of a high-class dining experience, for example, right? But who also finds her attractive, who also finds her sexy. And that is the boyfriend experience role, is to provide her with that fantasy of making her feel beautiful again, making her feel wanted again. Because that's ultimately what leads a woman to hire a guy like me in that situation. Is like she has the desire to feel beautiful. It's not that complicated, but that's the core like emotion that we're hitting there.
How do you get into that mode? Like, have you turned up and there's a woman that you look at and you're like, fuck me, I've got to do that tonight? Or
well, I would hold that thought back, like if I felt it coming on, because that's not going to help.
Yeah.
So it's about controlling like your emotions and stuff. But also it was a case of it's easy to, if you're interested in people, it's easy to be curious about somebody. Sure. So it's easy to make someone feel like wanted and make someone feel
just ask
special.
Nice questions and compliment and
just learn about it. All I had to do was just be curious about who they were, and they would open up.
And that's enough for them, because effectively, like you said, that's what they actually want.
It's exactly what they're after.
Followed by a bit of dick.
But that was the job, and it was what I noticed was there was a couple of clients I had who were very, very wealthy, and I was blown away by how lonely they were. These women who'd spent their whole life dedicated to like a career, and they ended up in a situation where if they dated a guy, he might take advantage of her for her money because she was so wealthy, right? So she felt kind of guarded, and she felt like she couldn't open up to guys. Yeah. It was hard for her to find someone who she considered to be her peer and she was actually attracted to, right? So it left them in this very awkward, lonely, unfortunately, situation. And then, they would reach out for companionship from a guy like me, and they'd see me pretty consistently. Yeah. Just to sort of cater to that human need for companionship.
Yeah. Was there ever any bad experiences doing?
Yeah,
like being a man?
I had a couple of girls who were just nut jobs and like wouldn't like.
At least you get paid for it.
They wouldn't let me leave.
Okay.
It was like
there's nothing worse than that when you're not getting paid.
Yeah,
when it's like when you're not providing a service.
You do it for free. Like stage 5 clinger, kind of bad. Where she was like, they'd like break down and cry if you try to leave. I'm like, honey, this was like, because you're playing a role up until a certain point, but if you're too believable,
they forget.
And they forget it's a transaction. So there was a couple of instances like that where it was super awkward. And I'm like, shit. all right, sorry, honey, but like this is what this is. You know, it's time to go. You know, it was. You see that, and it's like you can't help but feel sorry. You know, that she would get to that stage where she feels so. Not that not that I felt sorry for my clients for like having to book a guy to me. I understood why they did it, but then to have to kind of delude yourself into thinking it's real to the point where you can't let it go was the sad part to see sometimes. Yeah, it happened on a couple of occasions.
I never really thought of it the way that you broke it down previously, where you said that this woman has dedicated her whole life to her career and that's everything. As a man, if you're 30, 35, you've dedicated your whole life to your career and you're in this amazing job role now, you can still go and pick up that 23-year-old hottie and she's over the moon, if anything, this older guy who's got his shit in check, he's worked hard. Yep. But for a female, naturally, once you get past 30, 35, those types of guys aren't really looking at you anymore like that. Yeah.
Your options shrink down significantly.
Yeah.
And like I said, I can't help but have sympathy for women because I feel like they've been iron tight. My generation, definitely. Yours, less so. Your generation is sort of waking up a lot more, and I think your generation is adopting a lot more of like traditional roles.
Well, that's because of socials?
Maybe not adopting traditional roles yet because they can't afford a fucking house.
I feel like it's gone one. It's either one end of the spectrum or completely the other.
It's you're polarized.
Yeah, there's no. I don't think there's not really a middle ground.
Whereas with my generation, probably Gen X above me, it was very much like everyone bought the lie, this sort of blank slate equalism thing that men and women are exactly the same. Men and women can do all the same things to get the men can do anything women can do, women can do anything men can do.
Yeah.
And it led a lot of women down this path of loneliness ultimately, but the career path where now they haven't got any kids. We've got this generation of women who like it's a childless epidemic, honestly, but this generation of women who are in their, you know, like my age, like late 30s or older or somewhere around that age gap, with no kids, who are really, we're going to see this like wave of like resentment. It's not going to end well, I don't think, when you got millions of single women with nothing to direct their nurturing instincts towards. What's going to happen? Like this has never happened before in human history. So I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not to be a pessimist, but I think it could lead to some bad shit happening. Like because women, when you get women in political power, well, when women are leaders of countries, they start more wars. That's a statistical fact. Like when we get women in positions of government and leadership, they latch on to things like hate speech laws because they equate being offended with actual physical violence, which as a man, you intimately know that these two things are completely different. Mm-hmm. So you get these conflation of things the more women that end up in power. And I don't think it is a woman's role to be in that position. Like, I don't think they're equipped for it. I think they're too emotional.